Chapter 11 The Blythe Girls, Helen, Margie, and Rose by Laura Lee Hope. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 11 A Strange Employer. If Rose had been encountering unusual and exciting experiences in her job search, Margie's life in the household of Miss Pepper had had its share of excitement and adventure. The new social secretary was in the throes of something very like stage fright as she hesitated before descending to the presence of her new employer. She knew absolutely nothing about the duties of a social secretary, and while she had frankly told Miss Pepper this, she did not expect that lady to make allowances for her shortcomings. "Well, there's one comfort," she told herself grimly. "I can die only once, anyway." And with this rather sorry comfort, she left the security of her room and slowly descended the heavily carpeted stairs toward the library. She supposed this room was the one in which she had been received upon her arrival at the house, for there had been books, books, books in every available nook and cranny of it. She remembered that this room was at the front of the house and that heavy green curtains hung before the doorway, concealing it. She was hesitating before these same curtains a moment later when the sound of a quick step on the stairs behind her caused her to look hastily over her shoulder. The insolent maid was descending, and at the sight of the supercilious smile upon her lips, Margie flung up her head and without another moment's hesitation entered the room. She found Miss Pepper sitting in exactly the same spot before the littered table in which Margie had left her, and she was bending over a list of names with a frown of concentration. "Can't make head or tail of the whole beastly business," Margie heard her mutter as she entered. "Can't say want to either. Oh, so here you are." She whirled so quickly upon the girl that Margie started nervously. If she had been the veriest blackguard, Miss Pepper's greeting could not have been more severely suspicious. The new secretary found herself wondering if there was any dreadful thing that she had done and forgotten about later, and that this fearsome old woman had found out and was holding over her as a threat. Then Miss Pepper removed her spectacles and Margie saw that her frown was caused more by nearsightedness than bad temper. "Come here, child," her queer employer ordered peremptorily. "Think I can see you if you stand off there? Unreasonable, very. Haven't the eyesight I once had, you know. Youth should be more considerate of age, really should." "I'm sorry," said poor Margie, feeling the accusing gaze of the old woman upon her and realizing a need for justification. "If I did anything I shouldn't." "Nonsense," interrupted this surprising person irritably. "It's what you didn't do that I am talking about, not what you did. Come closer. I must have a good look at you." Margie had the peculiar impression that she was living through one of the fantastic scenes in Alice in Wonderland. Certainly this peculiar old person could not be real. People didn't talk to you like that and order you about so in real life. Margie expected Miss Pepper to change into the Queen of Hearts at any moment and fly in her face, but Miss Pepper did nothing of the kind. Instead, she subjected Margie to a prolonged and embarrassing inspection, at the end of which she grunted noncommittally. "Looks well enough," she muttered to herself, "but you never can tell." Margie did not know whether to be amused or angry. She compromised by deciding that Miss Pepper must be mentally unbalanced, and so not responsible for what she did. For some time Margie sat in her chair by the window while the old lady went on with her business, as unembarrassed by Margie's presence, apparently, as though she had been alone in the room. The girl had begun to wonder resentfully if she had been employed for the sole purpose of sitting with her hands folded while Miss Pepper worked, when the latter rose suddenly from her chair, almost upsetting it as she did, and turned spitefully, or so it seemed, upon her social secretary. "There! You can find out what's wrong with him if you can," she snapped, and turning, walked briskly from the room. For a moment Margie was too astonished to move or speak. She sat gaping at the door through which her employer had disappeared, with a most inane expression upon her face. She must be mad, or I am," she told herself at last. She had risen from her chair, resolved to flee the house forever, when Miss Pepper returned as suddenly as she had left. "Where are you going?" she demanded peevishly. "Set you to work, didn't I?" "You certainly didn't, Miss Pepper," retorted Margie, becoming a trifle peevish on her own account. "You told me to find out what was wrong with something, and I have not the slightest idea what you meant." Margie had no sooner spoken the hasty words than she was sorry. She fully expected to be thrown out of the house without delay. What was her surprise then to see the seamed and wrinkled face of her employer break into a pleased smile. "Good!" she cried. "Like you all the better for spunk. Got lots of it myself. What is it you don't understand?" "Oh, everything!" cried Margie, throwing out her hands in a helpless gesture. "You haven't told me a thing about my duties yet, Miss Pepper. I shall be glad to get down to work if I only know what there is to do." "Most reasonable," announced her employer with another pleased smile. "If there is one thing more than I value above another, it is that quality of reasonableness. Yes, yes, of course, you must know what you are to do before you can do it. Surely." All this time her hand was wandering among the litter of papers on her desk, stirring them into still more hopeless confusion. "Trouble is," she looked up suddenly and favored Margie with a confidential smile, "I don't know anything more about it than you do." This was a poser. How in the world was one to guess at her duties in a new position if even her employer could not tell her what they were? She looked helplessly at Miss Pepper, and that queer person suddenly grinned companionably. It was the nearest thing she had come to looking human ever since the beginning of the interview, and Margie conceived a sudden liking for her new employer. "Fact is," explained the latter, taking a seat and motioning Margie to do likewise, "had a most efficient social secretary for years. Ever since I needed one, as a matter of fact." Margie noted again that unusual trick of omitting a necessary word here and there. The fact that one's mind was continually kept busy filling in these omissions made it impossible to listen to Miss Pepper's discourse with any degree of quietness. It was very disconcerting, especially so to Margie at this time when she was so eager to learn just what it was this queer person did want of her. "That was very fortunate," she said as Miss Pepper stopped and regarded her severely, evidently expecting some reply. "Quite," she agreed dryly, making Margie feel she had said something very foolish indeed. "I picked her out myself," she added with an air of triumph. "Homeliest creature ever set eyes on. Truly." She beamed upon Margie, evidently expecting applause, but the girl was only mystified. "I don't believe I quite understand," she confessed. "Why were you so anxious for a homely one?" Miss Pepper frowned at such stupidity. "So wouldn't get married, of course," she snapped. "Silly habit, very silly. This one," she relaxed again and smiled in memory of her former secretary, "had cross eyes, terrible, and hook nose, regular hook nose. She had hare lip and funny teeth, spaces between 'em." "I should think from that description," Margie ventured demurely, "you would not have had to worry much about marriage in her case." The words, innocent enough in themselves, seemed to annoy Miss Pepper past expression. She fairly leaped from her chair and regarded the girl with a startling asperity. "Would you believe it?" she cried, and Margie realized with relief that her rage was for the departed secretary, not for the present one. "She deserted me! Got married!" "Then," breathed Margie amusedly, "there's hope for all of us." End of chapter 11.